What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you who do not know who I am, my name is Sagar. I'm a huge NBA fan, have been for a decade plus. Obsessed with the history of the game, the current events, and all the storylines surrounding the NBA as a whole. And my goal of this channel is to continue that passion and that interest, and hopefully start a dialogue with those of you that are watching, and ultimately have an opportunity to potentially educate anyone that is interested in getting into the NBA or already is super excited about the NBA and what the game has to offer in the league as a whole itself. So without any further ado, I'll just get into what the purpose of today's video is, which is why I believe the NBA absolutely needs to add a one-on-one tournament into All-Star Weekend. I have three primary reasons as to why I believe this is the case. However, before getting into that, I kind of want to talk about some of the context and the history of one-on-one tournaments in the NBA. So for those of you that are unfamiliar, the NBA actually did host a one-on-one tournament. I believe it was from the 1971 season all the way to the 73 season. It's two separate tournaments. It was, it comprised of all 17 teams nominating two players from each team, totaling 34 players in a tournament-style series throughout the course of the season. There was an accumulation of $50,000 in cash prize, and ultimately the one-on-one games happen at halftime at specific games. So, for example, the championship game, I believe in the 1972 NBA Finals between the New York Knicks and the Los Angeles Lakers, took place in Game 5. Bill Russell was the one commentating that, and it was between JoJo White and I believe Bob Lanier. I'm looking at my notes right now. And that game ultimately ended up going to Lanier. Bill Russell ended up handing Lanier $15,000 in denominations of $1 bills to Lanier on national television. Kind of, making a little bit of a joke out of it, but it was still a cool moment to see that one of the greatest players and one of our founders of the league, essentially, was really on board and trying to promote this tournament style competition. So relating that back to the modern day, I'm not necessarily suggesting that we should go back to that, although that is a super cool and idea that does have potential in terms of entertainment value. I'm more so thinking that nowadays there's just so much responsibility for the players and not enough incentive for them to participate in a one-on-one tournament when they make so much money. But I do think it is important that we have to seriously consider adding it to All-Star Weekend. I have three primary reasons. I guess just getting into my first reason, simply put, the current state of the All-Star Weekend has gone mundane and dry, especially the day before the actual All-Star game. I think it's the Saturday before that Sunday is the actual game. And it comprises of the skills challenge, the three-point contest, and the, of course, dunk contest. In terms of the dunk contest, there's only so much, fans can see. Or there's only so much the athlete himself can do physically. And I think we've kind of reached the capacity of what the best potential dunks are in terms of a dunk contest performative style event. There are professional dunkers out there that are also struggling with this creativity and this actual roadblock of how great an athlete, how much an athlete can do physically. And we've seen it over the last 10 years, with the exception of maybe an Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine back in 2016. But it's just the same, repeat dunks that we've seen over and over again. And even when they do happen, it's never to the same allure as the first time it happened, because obviously that was never seen before. But now the fans have been accustomed and almost privileged to the point where they don't realize what they're seeing. Unfortunately, even though these dunks still are remarkable, it's just, from a relative perspective, I can understand why a fan is tired of this competition as a whole. Not to mention, over the last 15, 20 years, there's just been a decline in the quality of players that participated. Back in the 90s, 80s, and whatnot, the best players in the world, if they were athletically capable enough at least, would participate in the dunk contest. I'm thinking of Jordan and the Dominique matchups back in the day. And, if that was still the case, then there would be more of an incentive and for me to say, okay, we need to continue this dunk contest because it brings together superstar players. And even if their dunks aren't as incredible as they once were, like for the first time, the allure of having those star players compete against each other on a national scale is still something that I think fans want to see. However, given the fact that we have had no evidence whatsoever of star players wanting to participate in this competition, I simply don't see why, honestly, we should continue this competition as a whole. I guess moving on to the three-point contest, we can talk about that a little bit. I think it's a good competition. I think year after year, the best shooters, including star three-point shooters, participate, like Steph Curry, Damian Lillard, Klay Thompson in the past. They recently did a Sabrina Ionescu versus Curry competition, which was also really cool to see, bringing together the WNBA and the NBA on a national scale. Curry ultimately ended up pulling out that matchup, but seeing Sabrina compete with Steph was pretty awesome. I think they should absolutely continue that. Shooting is arguably the most important skill, and for a lot of fans, the most entertaining thing to see is a three-point shot. So I don't see any reason why we should take that out of the picture. But I think that first set of competition, which is the skills challenge, I really don't understand what the NBA is doing anymore with that challenge. You guys can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, but I feel like back in the early 2000s, maybe early 2010s, there used to be this kind of competitive fervor towards that competition where all the small guards in the league would really compete and fight to try to get the best time possible. However, now that the skills have kind of transferred not just solely to the small guards being the most skilled players, but now we're even seeing 7-footers being more skilled, bigger guys that typically wouldn't have had the ball handling responsibilities of the past based on defined roles. And so we're seeing these kind of group matchups of like, okay, it's a few guys here versus another few guys here. And while that's interesting, the actual output of the event itself is just so, not entertaining to watch, to put it in other words. Like, it's just, everyone is just extremely nonchalant. There's no intentionality to actually compete and win this, which was once like a cool thing to see, like, oh, Derrick Rose, he got 22.1 seconds. Oh, but look at this. The next year, Chris Paul got 21.9. Like, so you would see like these incredibly fast and skilled guards competing for him. And obviously now you no longer see it. And so I guess that leads me to my next point, where taking one of those events, and maybe not the three-point contest, and replacing it with a one-on-one tournament simply because the demand is there. I guess looking at the demand, first of all, for the All-Star weekend as a whole, we've seen a steady decline over the years. Just taking a look at my notes. Over the years, the All-Star weekend has gone down from 9 million to 8 to 7 to 6, going as low as 4 million within the last few years. And obviously there's so much optionality now with social media, streaming services, and just, we just have an abundance of things to entertain ourselves with. So I guess the expectation isn't perhaps to go back to what it once was, but I think maybe increasing the trajectory a little bit more is always a valiant effort for any organization, and the NBA should think no differently of that. And I don't think they should be settling with this decline despite the abundance of material that is out there for other fans to consume, or people in general to consume. But in terms of the actual demand of a one-on-one tournament, I think it's clear as day. Like if any of you guys are tapped into YouTube one-on-one tournaments, you'll see Ball's Life host them, Devontae Friga, MK Hoops, and these one-on-one tournaments between, no disrespect, but between people that are really not known or relevant in the basketball world are still pulling millions of views, getting outstanding feedback in the comment section below, and it's just simply entertaining to watch. Typically these one-on-one games, from what I've seen, go up to a certain point total. From what I've seen, it's like a 30-point game. You have a referee. There isn't a dribble limit, but the people that they select seemingly have a high level of basketball background, at least high level high school or maybe even some college basketball, and so they're aware of the kind of way that people play one-on-one in a team setting, and say that so you don't see a lot of over dribbling. It's just a lot of kind of attacking from the pivot, from your triple threat stance, and you'll see the shot making on display, the handles, the body control, and the different styles that people have based on, you know, how they like to play. And ultimately, it's some of the most entertaining basketball I've quite honestly seen from guys that, again, are not that well known. Maybe they are in their own communities, but these guys are not NBA level talent guys whatsoever. So, you know, my thinking is if they're able to put on a performance that entertains hundreds of thousands, upwards of millions of people, you know, I see no reason why the NBA guys couldn't do the same. Where the fans are also giving positive reinforcement back to the NBA as a whole. There's also another league, the Unrivaled Basketball League, that recently hosted a women's one-on-one tournament with some of the best WNBA players in the world, and that was also incredibly well received. Although I didn't, you know, watch it fully, just through my research for this video, I saw once again the comment section. And typically, when you see a WNBA player's comment section, there's going to be some backlash. I mean, it is what it is. That's just the culture of how people act. It's unfortunate. Hopefully we'll continue to get to a point where women's basketball is more appreciated, but it's still to the point where, and it has gotten significantly better over the last few years, I will say, but typically when you go to a comment section, you'll see, they're trash, they can't hoop, oh, turn on the NBA game, why would you ever watch this? But when I was looking through the comments of this one-on-one tournament, I'm like, you consistently saw, whoa, this is some high-level hoops, like the NBA needs to bring this, or we need to see more of this. And you can really see that these two players that very much care about the game of basketball are going at it in a very competitive manner. So the demand is there. It clearly just needs to be executed on some stage, some way, somehow. And the demand for the players are there too. Like Kevin Durant came out not too long ago and he said that if there was a one-on-one tournament, he would absolutely consider participating in it. And you know how for those of you that are familiar with how trends work in the NBA, it's typically considered a copycat league. So if one of the best players in the world and one of the best isolation players in the world, but of all time, period, is willing to participate, then that's going to draw attention from other people, and naturally they're going to follow. Kyrie Irving also said that he would be very interested in some sort of tournament. He would obviously need to know certain rules and wants to make sure that it's not going to be a drag and just kind of ruin the allure of a one-on-one matchup. So if those two guys, who are arguably the two of the 5 greatest isolation players, one-on-one players, however you want to put it, in the history of basketball, if they want to do it, then I see no reason why it's even a debate at this point. Like if we're putting up the skills challenge for 45 minutes and all these other shenanigans with Mr. Beast coming in and shooting, having Damian Lillard shoot, like if we're doing that stuff, there's no reason why 2 of the greatest isolation players in the world shouldn't be able to showcase their skill set in a way that they can't in a 5-on-1 team setting. And so my last and final point, and just revisiting, first point would be the mundane aspect of the current events of the All-Star weekend. Second point would be the demand. And the final point I kind of want to make here is the skill level and the talent of NBA players in general, right? So I still don't think people understand how skilled and how talented NBA players are. For those of you that play basketball on a consistent basis, or even played it at high school or even maybe college level, you'll see guys maybe at your local pickup gym that played I'm not even taking Division I guys, but maybe Division II, Division III, and especially if they're a guard, because typically guards at that level have to be unbelievably skilled to overcompensate for their lack of height. And so you'll see some of those guys come into the gym and just absolutely dominate. They'll be hitting step back threes, NBA level threes, attacking the paint with ease, diving up players with ease, and just the games just seem so natural, so easy. And yeah, obviously the level of competition is nowhere near the same as what they're used to, so that's makes sense why they're dominating. But from just a shot making and like a skill set perspective, you're like, wow, how much better. Like sometimes you're like, how much better can players really get at the sport of basketball? And despite that, they can get a lot better. Like, take those guys times 10 and you have the 35 best players in the world. Most of these guys were by far the best players in their state for high school, were either the best player or a very good secondary player on their college team. And even that alone is not good enough to get you in the NBA. Even that alone sometimes may not get you in the league. And so to have that skill set on a national level, where potentially we can get some of the best guys like Durant, Kyrie, but even if we don't, even if we get role players, I think it'll truly put into perspective how skilled these guys are and how much of a freak of nature these individuals truly are. I think Brian Scalabrine put it best. For those of you who don't know who Scalabrine is, Scalabrine played in the league for a decade plus. He played on the 08 Celtics with Garnett, Pierce, Allen, and Rondo. However, he got no playing time. He was a 15th man on the end of the bench. His nickname was coined the White Mamba, a parallel to Black Mamba being Kobe Bryant. He was somewhat of a meme in NBA culture, but I think he put this statement best, where he said that I'm closer to LeBron James than you are to me. And that's just 100% the truth. Like, as much as we as fans, and sometimes rightfully so, like to tear down players or criticize players, we still have to put into perspective that these guys are the 0.00001% of basketball talents to ever exist in the history of basketball, let alone modern day. And I'm not saying we shouldn't criticize players, because it's a relative basis. We're criticizing them relative to NBA players, so to each his own in that regard. But having that skill set on display, I think, will bode so well for the NBA. Adam Silver, I think this is clearly a no-brainer. So for these reasons, for the mundane nature of the events currently, the clear high demand from the players, other leagues, and YouTube basketball, and the incredible skill set that needs to be put on display for the rest of the world to see, is why the NBA should absolutely, without a doubt, add the one-on-one tournament to All-Star Weekend. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for watching. This was clearly my first video. It was pretty choppy. I hope to improve in the future and try to make my points more concise and hopefully really educate and entertain as much as I possibly can surrounding the beautiful sport of basketball, and particularly the NBA. If you like this video, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you next week with another video. Awesome. Thanks, guys.